What's up everyone? Welcome to my personal top 15 favorite Nintendo 64 games. For starters, I want to explain what I consider when I rate these games. Nintendo 64 made a lot of really fun titles, so this list was really hard to make. But some of the things I factor in is the length of the game, how good are the multiplayer options in the game, or any other fun, quirky aspects to a game that made it resonate with me throughout my life. And of course, there will also be some personal bias. After all, it is my list. Well, let's get started. BanjoTooie, one of the many rareware classics made for the N64. This is a pretty long game, which gives you good value, and has a lot of good humor and fun puzzles. This is a must-play platformer title for the Nintendo 64. Being the sequel to BanjoKazooie, they expanded a lot on some of the things from the first game. Tooie saw them progress and try many new things, not all of which were done perfectly, but it's enough to be a separate game and not get you bored by being too similar to the first one. A few negatives of the game might be that some of the tasks in some of the levels are extremely tedious, especially in the factory level. The multiplayer isn't anything special either. I also don't feel like this game has a very high replay value, but you're going to have a blast going through it your first time. Star Fox 64. This was a great game on the Super Nintendo, and now being on the Nintendo 64 with the better graphics makes the game that much better. The game is fairly short and can be beaten in a few hours, but one of the best things about the game is it has excellent replay value because how you beat the game can vary depending on which path you take. You won't even be able to play every single level on your first time through. You'll need to replay it multiple times to travel and check out all the different planets and face different bosses throughout. And of course, if you take the correct path, you'll even be able to face the true final form of Andross. The multiplayer on this game isn't anything too special, but you could have fun with 4 players trying to fly around and shoot each other in a deathmatch. This is a very solid title for the Nintendo 64, and there aren't many games like this on the console. This is definitely one everybody should have in their collection. Mario Party 2. All the Mario Party games on the Nintendo 64 are a blast. If you've sat down with 3 friends and played this game all night, then you know how fun this game is. You can do a single player mode also, and compete against computer simulants and set their difficulty level to what you want, but this game is really at its best when you're with 3 friends. This is why, in my opinion, this game has unlimited replay value, because every single time you play, there's a different outcome. You never know who's going to win or what's going to happen. It's a total blast and still a great party game with your friends to this day. Mario Kart 64, one of the earliest release titles on the console. It's a game that I think most N64 owners and fans have played or still play. I do think this 64 version is better than the Super Nintendo's. The graphics and overall handling of the kart make this game superior. This game does have a good amount of replay value, especially if you know about how fun the battle modes can be. Sitting in block fort with 3 friends, shooting shells at each other, that's a blast. The 2-player Grand Prix mode is also a lot of fun, but this is one of my biggest complaints about the game. When you're doing the Grand Prix, only 2 people can participate in a full-on Grand Prix with simulants. If you're doing more than 2 people in your racing, it eliminates all the simulants and just has the 3 players. This game can get a little boring after a while, and I wouldn't say it's my favorite racing game on the console. But hey, it's Mario Kart. It's still a really fun game and a must-play. Super Smash Bros. 64. I played the crap out of this game as a kid. Me and a group of friends would play this game all the time. There was a while when this was my most played N64 game. The biggest problem with this game was when Super Smash Bros. Melee came out on the GameCube, it completely blew it out of the water. But this is still the start to a huge Smash Bros. Franchise that is still going to this day and now has a huge following of players. The replay value on this game is really good though, as you can play between so many different characters and do some different single player modes. There's a lot to be done in this game. Setting the different levels of difficulty in not only the single player mode and the multiplayer options when fighting against simulants makes this game a lot of fun, as you can work your way up to getting better at the game. It's easy to be critical of this game after Melee came out, which I think is the best Smash Brothers still to this day. But this is still the classic original Smash Brothers and has all the Smash action that everybody loves. Diddy Kong Racing. Rareware was all over it with this one. I think Diddy Kong Racing is the best racing game on the Nintendo 64. Diddy Kong Racing is so much more of a game than Mario Kart. You have the ability to race in 3 different vehicles, and the adventure mode has so much more than just your typical racing. There are boss races, coin races, mini games, and a whole island to check out in the adventure mode. The multiplayer is pretty good too. I was a big Mario Kart fan as a kid, and didn't really realize how good Diddy Kong Racing was until I was a little bit older. But nowadays, if I had to go to a racing game, you'd see me pick up Diddy Kong a lot quicker than I would Mario Kart. I do think Mario Kart's multiplayer is a little bit better though, especially with the battle mode, but Diddy Kong Racing is the better game, and the more complete racing game. Conker's Bad Fur Day. Remember this cute little squirrel from Diddy Kong Racing? Well, he's having a bad day now. This game centers around Conker the squirrel, who wakes up after a tough night of drinking and needs to piece his life back together. He just wants to go home and take a nap, but there's all kinds of crazy things he runs into. This game is made for adults, and especially those who like toilet humor. The single player mode is a lot of fun, but isn't anything too extra special. My favorite part of this game has got to be the multiplayer. There are 7 different game settings, and range anywhere from a bank heist to a prehistoric world where raptors are trying to eat the cavemen. Because of how good the multiplayer is, I feel like this game's almost 2 games in one. This game would have been really good if it was just the multiplayer aspect to it, but now you've got a fun single player story as well. I would highly recommend playing this game, not only for the great single player and multiplayer mode, but just to witness the crazy chaos and absurdities they put into this game. You're going to want to keep playing this game when you start it, just to see what kind of crazy obscure thing you're going to run into next. BanjoKazooie. I talked earlier about BanjoTooie, and these games are very similar, but BanjoKazooie I believe is the better of the 2 games. BanjoTooie did try some new things that some people might like better than Kazooie, but I think Kazooie did just the right amount without giving you too much game. All the classic Rareware humor can be found here, of course, and this game on your first playthrough will be a riot. There are no multiplayer options in this game, which for me sometimes can lower the replay value of a game. And honestly, a lot of the times platforming games don't have the most replay value to begin with, but this is such a good platformer that there's definitely going to be a time when you want to revisit this, and it's one of the best platformers on the N64. Donkey Kong 64. A lot of people may be questioning why I put this game so high, as I think a lot of people think the Banjo games are a lot better than this one. I'll admit there is a little bit of personal bias for me with this game, because I think I played this game a lot more than the Banjo games and other Rare platformers. But I really enjoy this game. There's something about unlocking all the Kongs and being able to switch between them and needing to use one to help the other that really sticks with me. There is also some multiplayer here, but it's mostly just going around some of the levels and shooting people with coconuts and peanuts, which is better than nothing, I guess. Some of the big complaints with this game is that it can be too tedious, especially for trying to 100% the game. But I just think it's done perfectly. I really enjoy this game. If you enjoy platform games on the N64, this has got to be on your list. The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask. We're starting to get to some pretty epic games here on this list, and it should be no surprise that this is on my list. This was one of the most unique Zelda games ever made, and honestly one of the most unique on the N64 console. I can't think of many other games that have an active clock running, making you feel the pressure of playing the game even more. A lot of people didn't like the running clock aspect because they always felt like they ran out of time to do what they needed to do. But once you figure out how to use the clock to your advantage and when to save and start a new day. This game really grows on you very quickly. There are tons of things to collect, all the masks, all the heart pieces. It's a true Zelda adventure. My only slight criticism of this game is that there's only 4 temples, and I know that the game is very centered around the collecting of the masks, among other things, but I always wish there was more levels because I really love the 4 that are in this game, and Ocarina of Time has a lot of different temples. While this may not be my favorite Zelda game ever made in the series, it's still a very good game, and definitely up to the Zelda standards. It is undoubtedly one of the best games on the N64 console. Mario Party 3. This game is so much fun. They took everything that was good about the first and second Mario Party and made a third. The first and second Mario Parties are already some of my favorite games for the N64, but the third one went above and beyond my expectations. The overall gameplay is smoother and looks crisper. There is also now a true single-player mode to this game in the story mode. Here you can challenge all the computers on various difficulty levels and attempt to do specific objectives that are given out before each level, and you'll be ranked on them on how well you completed it. This was something that was new to the Mario Party series, and I thought added a new dimension to the game, especially when you're only playing by yourself. Because in reality, this game is still at its best when you play with all your friends. I do think this is one of the best multiplayer experiences on the N64, and I think they put enough into this game, and there's enough here to do that puts this game so high on my list. Perfect Dark. Whoa, another Rare game. Who would have thought? This is an amazing first-person shooter title for the Nintendo 64. Perfect Dark is a spiritual successor to the very popular 007 GoldenEye. And don't get me wrong, GoldenEye is also a great game, but Perfect Dark does everything better. The single-player campaign mode does run very similar to GoldenEye, in which you have objectives and missions to do and complete before you can successfully beat a level. But for me, where Perfect Dark starts to truly separate itself from GoldenEye is in the multiplayer. You now have the option of putting up to 8 simulants up against you with varying levels of difficulty. You can literally customize every single simulant's difficulty and even give them different personalities. You can even do 8 simulants plus the 4 human players. You can put all the simulants on easy and just have fun going around slaughtering people, or you can give yourself a big challenge and put them on hard. Either way, this multiplayer is top notch. The combination of how good the single player is with this game, plus the multiplayer, makes this game one of my favorites of all time. Super Mario 64, one of the launch titles with the 64 console. Nobody should be surprised to see this high on my list. This is a great game, a classic Mario adventure, and now in 3D. There's a ton to do in this game and lots of different levels to explore. You'll find yourself working really hard to complete this game all the way. This game is very accessible to people of all ages, and definitely is my favorite platformer on the Nintendo 64 console. Paper Mario. The Nintendo 64 is not known for having many RPGs on it, and honestly, the ones that were there weren't very good. But Paper Mario made the whole thing worth it. I would describe this game as charming. It's fun for people of any ages and has humor that anyone could appreciate. Plus, this game is long. Don't be surprised if you find yourself going deep into this venture, upwards of 50 hours. For me, that's a big strength in a game, especially on the N64, which isn't known for having a lot of really long games. And while this game is only a single-player game, it's one of the best games ever made, not only for the N64, but in general. The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. This should come as no surprise to anyone watching this video, as this is arguably one of the greatest games of all time, and to many people who grew up playing video games, would say this is their favorite game they ever played. Between the epic story, the dungeons, the items, the characters, the puzzles, what's not to like about Ocarina of Time? One fun story about this game for me is I had a file I started when I was maybe 9 years old or so that I didn't 100% complete, until I was about 22 years old. I finally got that last hard piece. Only a game this good could make someone want to go back after all those years and continue the adventure. And I still to this day find myself replaying this game every year or so. While it's hard for me to say this is my favorite video game of all time, it's certainly my favorite on the Nintendo 64, and I would definitely bring it up in any conversation of favorite video games of all time. This truly is a game to go down in gaming history as one that changed the world of gaming forever. Thank you for watching my video about my 15 favorite Nintendo 64 games. I hope you enjoyed. What are some of your favorites from the Nintendo 64?